everyone. We're going to cover lecture number 6, which is the composition of teeth and tissue surrounding the teeth. Let's start off with the three main parts of the tooth. We've got the anatomic crown, which is the portion of the tooth that is covered by enamel and it is visible inside the mouth. So when you look in the mouth, that's the part of the tooth that you can see. We have the anatomic root. This portion of the tooth is embedded into the bone of the upper and lower jaws. It is covered by cementum, and this is something that you cannot see. It's covered with gum tissue. Like we said, it's embedded in the bone, so you can't see it just by looking in the mouth. Your pulp cavity is the central portion of the tooth that is filled with pulpal tissue and is surrounded by dentin. So that is inside the tooth. The cemento-enamel junction, also known as the cervix, is the constricted portion of the tooth at the junction of the anatomic root and the anatomic crown. This is pretty much the neck of the tooth. It's where the root and the crown meet. Your apex is the very tip of the root. At the very tip of the root, you have the apical foramen, which is the minute opening that the blood supply, lymphatic drainage, system and nerve supply all enter the tooth and into the dental pulp. Your dental pulp consists of blood supply, which is where the arteries and veins enter the dental pulp through the apical foramen, what we just spoke about. The blood vessels in younger teeth are more numerous than older teeth. So that's just a good something to know. The blood supply that is in every tooth is not the same. Like we said, younger teeth have more numerous veins and arteries than older teeth. Lymphatic drainage is an independent system of vessels carrying lymph. Lymph is the clear fluid that carries waste. You also have your nerve supply. The nerve endings transmit sensations of either pain or touch. And we've got those all over our body, but we've also got them in our teeth. Your pulp cavity consists of two major parts. You've got the pulp chamber and you've got the pulp canal. The pulp chamber is the largest portion of the pulp cavity and it's located within the coronal portion of the tooth. The pulp canal is the small and narrow portion of the pulp cavity located within the root of the tooth. As far as tissues of the teeth, we've got enamel, which is the hardest tissue in the human body. It protects the dentin and covers the entire crown of the tooth. The dentin is this substance is harder than bone, but it is softer than enamel. It is light yellow in color and it makes up the largest portion of the tooth. So the majority of the tooth is made out of dentin. Cementum is a layer of bone-like tissue covering the roots of the teeth. The periodontal ligament it's also known as the PDL. Its fibers embedded within the cementum, and it serves the mechanical function of attaching the root of the tooth to the wall of the alveolar socket. As far as anatomical landmarks of teeth and dental terminology, we'll cover the bulk of them here. So first you've got your cusp. The cusp is a peak or an elevation of a tooth located on the occlusal surface of molars and premolars and on the incisal edges of canines. Contact. The contact is an area where one tooth is touching its neighbor. So when you floss in between your teeth, that part where you've got to apply pressure to get the floss between your teeth normally, that's the contact. A fissure is a fault that occurs along the developmental groove during the incomplete or imperfect union of two lobes. A pit is a pinpoint depression located at the junction of developmental grooves or fissures. A pit is often the site of dental caries. Usually it's just very tiny. It's hard to get your toothbrush down in that area, so that's usually where caries will start. A mamelon is a lobe found on the incisal edge of anterior teeth. Usually they are 3 in number. A groove is a linear depression on the surface of the tooth. A ridge is a linear elevation on the surface of a tooth. It gets its name according to its location and form. For example, buccal ridges, incisal ridges, marginal ridges, it all depends on where it is located on the tooth. Marginal ridges are elevated borders of enamel which form the margins of molars and premolars mesially and distally and the lingual surfaces of anterior teeth. Embrasures are the triangle space in the gingival direction between proximal surfaces of two teeth. The embrasures may diverge in four directions: facially, lingually, occlusally, and apically. The tissues surrounding the teeth, we've got the periodontum, which is the tissues that support and surround the teeth. Part of the periodontum is the alveolar process, which is the supporting sockets of the teeth. And then we've got the periodontal ligament, which we spoke about earlier. The PDL is a collection of fibers with the primary purpose of suspending the teeth within the socket and supporting the gingiva. Gingiva, also known as the gums, we've got a couple different areas. So we've got the free gingiva, which is the movable tissue that surround the crown of the tooth just above the CEJ, the cemento-enamel junction of the tooth. We've got the gingiva crest, which is the peak of the free gingiva. So the gingiva crest is where in between the teeth, normally where your gum tissue kind of comes up at a point. That's the gingiva crest. The gingiva sulcus is the space that exists between the tooth and the free gingiva. The free gingival groove is located below the sulcus. This line separates the free gingiva and the attached gingiva. The interdental papilla is the triangle-shaped crest of gingival tissue located between the teeth. These crests of tissue consist of free and attached gingiva. So that's like we were talking about the gingiva crest. Attached gingiva, the portion of the mucous membrane bound to the tooth and to the alveolar arches of the jaw. And that is lecture 6.